Hey, Made in America listeners. Whether this is your first show or you've been with us for 5 years, thank you so much for joining us. Please spread the word about what we're doing and the great things that are happening in manufacturing with somebody you know. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on our second panel of the day, talking about technology and automation in manufacturing. So really important, I think, in all manufacturing, especially modern manufacturing and aerospace manufacturing in Connecticut, to be thinking about technology and how we can use technology on the manufacturing floor better than we have in the past. So that'll be kind of the focus of our conversation. We'll go big picture, share some examples, have some fun, and then hit the bar after. Works?
Yes.
All right. So we'll do intros and we'll start. Oh, I guess I just realized. Red, white, and blue. Look at that. It's all an American thing going on. That's all right. All right, cool. That's right. And I got, just for the record, got my American flag underlining. There you go. And oh, that's right, in there. All right, so we'll start over here. Introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Brian Montanari, President and CEO of HABCO Industries, located in Glastonbury. We also have a couple of facilities in East Hartford. And our focus in the aerospace industry is in the aftermarket. So none of our product really flies. It all supports the engine and airframe when it's in for service.
And so thinking about that part of the business, like when you think about sort of how you think about manufacturing in terms of mix and volume, like how does that work at HABCO in terms of mix and volume?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's been 18 years at HABCO, and I came from a high volume, low mix environment in the past. 82% of all of our jobs last year were quantity 1, and 96% of all of our jobs were quantity 5 and below. So when you try to implement technology, lean, efficiencies, it's a really big difference in one-off manufacturing. So that's been our challenge in trying to find ways to use technology, partnering with CCAT and others to be able to find ways to be more efficient, even if it's in a one-off. And so if we get an opportunity to build 3 of something, we high five. 10, we jump up and down for joy.
Yeah, and listen, I think at ACM, a lot of the ACM members are in, maybe even that's an extreme for ACM, but I think most ACM members tend to be, lower volume producers. So that'll cover that. Yeah. All right, next intro. On the red side,
I'm Jackie Garofano, Chief Technology Officer at CCAT, which is the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology. We're based in East Hartford, Connecticut. We're an organization that helps manufacturing companies here in the state, across the Northeast and across the country with technology adoption, implementation, bringing awareness to really what's new and emergent for them to bring into their shop floors. So we focus on tech, but we also now have a talent and training accelerator, which is bringing us into this full circle closed feedback loop of having companies understand where they need to be on their digital transformation. And then we prove that out with our tech team in the lab.
So I think that's awesome. And before we get to our last introduction, just to clarify this point, I think a lot of people hear about sort of a technology, that like a CCAT type organization, and they think incubator, high-end, ivory tower, coming up with all kinds of crazy stuff that like never actually gets made. It's the slideshow you see of something that looks really cool, but may never actually be in reality. But I don't think that's really what CCAT is. CCAT's more like on the applied technology side. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. Applied. We need to be able to bring challenges and problems that we hear from our colleagues across ACM and other manufacturers to have us provide a solution today. Right? We need to be focusing on what's going to be implemented, what's going to be incorporated into their business to help them with cost reduction, with workforce challenges, and applied is really the key word.
Yeah.
You've hit it on the head.
Well, I think that's really important because a lot of people hear about this stuff and they don't know. So look, applied doesn't mean we're going to show up and do it for you.
Right.
But
yes.
Applied means we can help you if you reach out. So I just always think that Connecticut has so many great resources internally. And to your point, CCAT even serves outside of Connecticut, but we have the luxury of having you within easy driving distance of anyone that's watching this podcast. And they need to take advantage, but they got to take the first step. And we'll talk about some of those examples. So last but not least, the blue team. The blue team.
Yeah. Nick Delic, president of New England Airfoils. We are located in Farmington, Connecticut. We're a small machine shop with some special processes. So we do compressor blades, both aerospace and defense. We do industrial gas and power generation things, and some of the structural stuff that we support out of our facilities in Italy, where our parent company sits. So Italy is the mothership over there. We're the U.S. spearhead into the market.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Pietro Rosa's a great story, and from what I've heard from you and others at NEAP, a really great partner.
Yep. Yeah, Pietro Rosa, I think, first of all, looked around the American, what, where, and why would we come here and how? And I think what they found in Connecticut was like this unique ecosystem of the support around for a small business that is about to start. So the organizations like CCAT and the accessibility you have to ACM and all of this for us is such a great support that often you feel like it's only available to the big guys, you know, like something that CCAT is so unique about, and I'll give them props because we work a lot with them. They give you a glimpse of these technologies and things that are the sexy stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
That, you know, usually you think it's like, oh, this is too expensive for us to even to look at as a small company. But they give you a glimpse into it, and then we kind of talk together, how can we apply this? How can we get a little bit of that into our shop and improve? So
That's
it's a great support system.
Yeah,
here.
listen, it's like when you think about the big, like, you know, OEMs or a big, you know, huge suppliers, they can have R&D departments, or they get sometimes federal funding to help like do experimental projects. And sort of we have that own little thing with CCAT and stuff like that. So that's great. Just to kind of connect the dots back to the same question I'd asked Brian earlier, when you think about sort of your kind of volume and mix, what does your sort of volume and mix look like in terms of what you guys produce? You know, generally speaking, our orders, how many parts, you know, are you thinking about when you look at your manufacturing?
So we have, I would say, two different strategies within our organization. One is focusing on an LTA-based kind of work, which is a long period of time running, maybe a lower mix, higher volume stuff. That
higher volume over the term of the LTA, or even
within the year. So you're
Okay.
talking about like currently the GTFs or the F1, like something that is high in production at the moment. And then you have more maybe that legacy side of it, which is kind of more like, we would call it an agile environment. So also like an industrial gas turbine falls into that, because they don't really know what they need until they open the turbine, right?
Right.
So they need that fast response, but it could be a smaller run, and it could not repeat for 2 years, 3 years, like it comes and goes kind of thing.
Yep.
So there are two business models within our shop that kind of deal.
So you have, when you say high volume, how many parts would you run in like a year on a high volume part? I mean,
So-
tens of thousands?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have that low mix, not millions, but tens of thousands
Correct.
of parts.
I mean, we make compressor blades, which is probably one of the more, I would say, highly engineered products in that section. So it is sensitive to a lot of things. But yeah, I would say our highest runners are over 10 to 20,000 pieces a year, which is a lot for a blade.
Yeah, that's for an aerospace business. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
I'm a little jealous.
I was gonna say, Brian's gonna start crying in a second. And then on the other side of it, you also have stuff that runs. They open up that like that. You know, the gas turbine engine could be a run of 1 or 2.
It could be. I mean, our facility in Italy supports like nuclear plants as well. So they open it, they say, hey, one blade is wrong. And all of a sudden you have to make one blade. And to be in that market, you need to have material available for future need when it comes up.
Yeah, material.
So
Your
it does
MRP
bring
is really challenging.
Yeah,
so,
it brings
you
its
actually
own-
have a little bit of both. So you kind of so Brian gets to be jealous on the one hand because you've got sort of like the high volume on one side, but then you can cry with him because you got the other side of the business that's not only low volume, but also could disappear for a few years.
Yeah, it can, and we don't discriminate against
That's
that
right.
job. I'm not saying we're discriminating. We will welcome our customers
Of
when they
course.
need those. It just sometimes I think, and especially maybe in the last 2-3 years with all the supply chain issues that you've seen, it gets it so much harder to reactivate the supply chain when it's been dormant for 2+ years, because you have, in certain cases, you have qualification needs because it's been dormant for that long.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it triggers a lot more things to do than when you're like kind of like steady going and just delivering.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. All right. So we've got a lot of mix of execution. So let's go back to the red team, Jackie. So when you think about from a technology perspective, and look, you know, I'm a nerd at heart, but I do want to stay kind of at a business level on the conversation. So from a business level, when you talk to somebody like Brian or somebody like Nick, how do you think about or help them think about what technologies are available? How do you even start that layer? Because I made the point before, even though things are applied, you have to go get them, right? No one, if you sit in your building, no one's going to come give you new technology. But a lot of times people are scared to start because they don't even know the right question to ask or where to go. So what would you say? How do they think about it? What questions should they ask? How can they think about partnering with someone like CCAT to get technology?
CCAT is a Connecticut resource, so speaking to the ACM companies here, many of them are familiar, so it's great that we've had opportunities to work with Brian and Nick and their employees. When it comes to the business message, it's, you have to be able to go and approach it with having that trusted network of providers and partners. And so CCAT, us and our extension of that is our tech partners, we're that for Connecticut companies. When you consider, the sexy, things that are happening on the floor, or what we're showcasing, it's tangible, it's real, it's understanding the value of bringing in automation, going into digital thread and model-based definition practices. You're going to save a considerable amount of time that you could then reinvest into your human capital. So with what our team has at CCAT are the necessary assets to be able to break down those barriers of having business owners say, oh, that's too far out of reach, right? When they think about getting started, do they come to you with a problem they want to solve? Do they just come to you and say, help us figure out where to find a problem to solve? Like, where does the journey start? I'll put in a bit of a plug for what we have as a valuable resource at CCAT, which is our digital thread lab in our talent training accelerator. This is an opportunity for business owners to understand the importance of taking your company on a digital transformation through design and manufacturing and inspection processes. Many a times business owners, they can come to us with, I don't even know where to begin, right? And so at that ground level,
like they'll just show up and say, I want to use technology more, help me, and you guys can help?
That's the start of the conversation, and then it gets into, what is the flow within your organization? What types of parts are you making? Where are the the weakest linkages in your business? So for the team at CCAT, our tech team is really the ones that have that tribal knowledge to say and understand, okay, this is where you might think that your problem is this, but really what I'm hearing is that. So we're a bit of the decoders of what a business owner may be considering.
Decoders, I see what you did there. Yeah. It's like a technology pun. I'm feeling that. I like it. Yeah.
I mean, really, we want to be able to serve as a team that can help, folks like Brian and Nick understand where they need to invest in the value. And again, it doesn't necessarily need to take a heavy investment. Sometimes it's software. Maybe it's looking at the software that you already have on your shop floor and utilizing it in a different purpose.
Yeah, well, those are the best investments when you find out, a little tweak over here solves all my problems. But let's not So let's go.
I could give you a good example of how we did with her.
Yes.
CCAT, sorry. I mentioned before how almost all of our work is very, very low quantity. And we had an opportunity with Sikorsky for 51 of one thing. And for us, we had no idea how to even approach
51 of one item, Brian. Their whole team, forget high-fiving, champagne was being popped.
We had no idea how to cost it because our processes are set up for one-off, right? And so when we knew who we were competing against, which was a company that's not local in a lower-cost state, and we went to CCAT and said, okay, we've got this opportunity. We need to be able to do something differently. We knew from a cycle time standpoint what our two longest cycle times were. One was welding, one was actually laying the stencils. And we went to CCAT and sat with Nasir and said, what can we do? How can we get this to be lower cycle time, therefore less cost? And they came up with multiple options on the welding side, on the stenciling side. The welding was going to be a bit more expensive to go to automated welding, and I don't know when we were going to, the ROI was going to be much longer. But they introduced us to technology using the Microsoft HoloLens to do virtual reality to lay the stencils. And that was never something I would have ever thought of. Never thought of it. And sit down and then all of a sudden you get all these opportunities. And I think that's the benefit, one of the major benefits that CCAT presents, because you can go to them with a specific issue, or you can go to them with an open book, and they've got a path for it.
So I think that's a use case that it's not even something I generally talk about, which is HABCO had an opportunity to do something new, like win new business, but understood that your normal processes didn't really meet the needs of being competitive to that business. But other than that, you could do the business. So looking to say, how can you get there? And so I don't know, but you said HoloLens and now you know what it is, but I don't think a lot of people out there really understand what it is, which is like, it's mixed reality, right? So people know what virtual reality is, mixed reality, which basically means you wear glasses and the computer puts out in real world something that you can sort of interact with. And so that lays out the stencil, which is what helped you guys do it. So that's just a great example of, hey, we had an opportunity and then partner with CCAT to figure out technology to make that work. So that's pretty unique. Nick, what about you? I know you've
What's
worked
my
with them.
story with CCAT?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we have a couple of them, I think. I think just as I was getting on board to my current position, we were cooperating with CCAT on a software solution and testing it out to see what kind of improvements it can yield in the manufacturing process. And in our world, when it comes to machining, it came down to how do you lower down the cycle times on a product to make more parts in a day. So again, a high volume problem. So we were able to cut down. I believe at that point it was somewhere around 30% of machine time was taken out by optimizing the programs, which was a huge improvement. And to go to the customer side, the customer of course had its own, I would say, cost targets to be met. And we also knew the similar situation is that if we don't do anything, we will not be able to meet this cost target. So we need to do something different, think outside the box. And that's kind of how like the collaboration came about. And we still use this software now, and we're starting to implementing now, even at the NPI stage when we're developing from the get-go. You know, with that project, we kind of came at the tail end of it because we did it the old way and then saw the benefit of doing it with new tweaks. Now we're trying to just embed that into the way our engineers start to think about the project when they're doing it.
Oh, that's a really interesting take. So sort of saying, you came at it sort of the way we were describing, which is have problem, solve problem. And now you're trying to say, oh shit.
That becomes the new standard.
Yeah.
It's the new
now,
standard.
Instead of waiting for the problem,
Yeah.
come with the solution and fix it before the problem starts.
Right, yeah. So now we're looking at that to be like the baseline kind of thing. Like we did this before. We know we can do it. How do we now do it better even? Like we continue to move forward and challenge. That's always the challenge with the engineering team. How can we see this manufacturing process through the eyes of the new technologies that are available to us? Is there something that we can tweak differently to get a better process, more optimized, lower cost, whatever it is, that would benefit the company or the customer ultimately, without compromising, of course, any kind of quality or any kind of standards of the aerospace industry.
That's great. So Brian, you have this new approach. When you went to say use like the HoloLens, did you find adoption was a challenge? Because sometimes technology looks great on paper and even looks good in the lab, but then you go to roll it out and there's so much adoption resistance, it doesn't actually work. And I think all of us, and we know people who have stories of technology they've invested in that never actually got utilized. Did you find any resistance to adoption?
I think initially in concept, because it's always, people get excited and be like, oh yeah, but try that over there. Don't try that in this area. And so we looked at it from a couple of standpoints. One was obviously the cycle time reduction, but also for me, as we continue to grow, it's how do we reduce the skill level required to do some of the work? And the goal I gave the team was I want either of my two teenage daughters at the time to be able to stencil a container. And so we put it in that perspective. The folks that knew how to read a blueprint, that wanted to do the work, they were less enthused about it, but it was the folks who didn't know how to do it that got a chance to play with it. And then and especially the younger folks coming out of school who are so technology oriented, so device oriented, everybody wanted to try it. And eventually it just became a fun thing where people wanted to do it. But ultimately at the end of the day, similar to what you're talking about, it comes down to the results, because when you're in a one-off business, you got one chance to make something right. We don't have hundreds more to amortize a loss over if you mess it up.
Right.
And so having that mentality was focused on the error proofing, the skill reduction, but also on the ability to leverage it, do it over and over again. and just reduce the cost, but also increase the repeatability.
Well, because I think that's, Brian, one thing that maybe people don't, well, maybe isn't obvious or takes a little bit to think about, which is technology can be great to help automating, doing a lot of things easier. But when you're only making a few of something, every mistake is amplified 100-fold, right? Because if I'm making 10,000 of something and I make a mistake on one piece, it's not a huge percentage. If I'm making one of something and I screw it up, I've zero quality, right? Like I have 100% defects. And now you're sort of starting all over. So like when you think about that, is there an opportunity to use technology to leverage that to get it right the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's bringing it upstream. It's being able to look at the technology in the estimating process so that we estimate properly so that we can win the order. If we win the order, being able to make sure that we can actually make money on the order as well. So we're actually trying to, we went from this shotgun approach of technology because it was fun, right? And ultimately that was a success because we went from a 3-hour cycle time to a 30-minute cycle time on that one operation.
That's huge.
Which is huge, absolutely huge. And so now it's we start going, right, well, we could try something over here, try something over here. We can use this company for this company for that. It became all these disparate systems. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, what's the strategy? How do we take this back and think about it differently and pull it through the value stream? And for us, it's all about doing it in the upfront. If we can estimate better and we can design better, then when you go to make it the one time, you have a much better shot of being successful.
100%. And I also feel like there's that sort of a lot of times when you look at sort of lean improvements, you're best starting off with something to get like a little bit of victory because those little wins create the momentum. And so you're building the momentum. So Nick, sort of same question to you as we start to wrap up is, when was there resistance to any of the changes you guys were making? How did you get people to embrace it? What did you see?
I don't think there was a resistance necessarily to technology, but I think aerospace is such a unique industry where a lot of the folk have been here for a while. And then I think one thing that happened under this COVID timeframe is the big outflow of the knowledge that happened with people going to retirement or taking early retirements or deciding to go because they were getting laid off or whatever or not. It's creating this little, I would say, a vacuum, a little bit of space after COVID where you're struggling, especially here in Aerospace Alley. I don't know about other businesses, but I feel like we're all competing for the same resources. And, we're talking about technology. And when I walked in here, my thing was like, okay, I have a challenge to bring talent that I can retain. So how do I compete? How do I become the sexy machine shop that a young engineer from school wants to come to work for? Because they know the name of Pratt & Whitney, Raytheon, all these big aerospace names. They don't necessarily know New England Airfoils. So how do I, when they walk through that door, show them something that is exciting and new? And I think this is where, for me, like as a president of the company, this technology bit and getting people excited about what we're doing and displaying this technology in the shop that we're doing it and showcasing it even at an interview process has proven to be actually like a little bit of a benefit to actually tell the young engineer, oh my God, I want to do this. Like this sounds fun. Because again, Blade is a very complicated, and engineers love complicated stuff. So get them this experience of what it feels to be in a day of an engineer at our facility at time of interview, I think goes like a long way. So we have a lot of new technologies and manufacturing ideas that we're bringing over from Italy because that was our incubator for R&D. And a lot of these new engineers, what they're getting involved with is that they have the opportunity to go to Italy, which is another benefit because we're near Venice.
Oh, that's not bad.
So anybody listening to this that's looking to...
that wants to go to Venice. Yeah. Here's a way to get a free trip to Venice. All you have to do is go to school, get an engineering degree, apply in New England Airfoil.
New England Airfoils, So I think a lot of the engineers really enjoy that. Okay, I can actually have a clean slate and I can create something and I have the freedom to bring ideas to the table. Because Paul Lavoie talked about it, like everybody today just walks around with technology in their hand. Like they want to work with technology too. So as a machine shop, as any business, you don't want to be left behind. You kind of want to stay current and tap into everything that's happening and also knowing where the product is moving. We talk every day almost, or every month on my executive meeting about the technology roadmap. Where are the products moving? Where's the technology of the OEM moving? And how is our product going to be affected with that? And how does, an organization, who can help us with this to be on that trajectory with them is the big question, you know? So we're trying to see, okay, which are the technologies we're going to be adopting first on our journey as the next step. What's next? We don't want to be left behind.
I love that concept of a technology roadmap. And maybe, Jackie, you want to give us kind of your thoughts on that idea? Because I think, you know, we manufacturers have been through this journey of like modernizing the factory floor. We've been through the journey, not that that's ever over, but we sort of embraced that. Then we sort of have embraced like kind of lean and continuous improvement concepts. How do we reduce waste and improve efficiencies? And we need, I believe we're at the point now where if you want to survive for the next 20 years, you have to have a technology roadmap and embrace it in addition to those first two things. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to understand, especially where your customers are at and where their customers are at too, right? Yeah. The Department of Defense is rolling out, you know, initiatives that focus on cybersecurity, but then also with respect to model-based definition and digital thread. And some companies are still, you know, working with 2D blueprints. They're not investing in, you know, getting the right technology that they need. So for our team, we love to be able to go into a company and, you know, think about the thought leadership that your executive team would have, what your tech team has as well, and then partner with you to understand and help you, you know, navigate through that upward trajectory of, you know, where do you need to be, right? And because of the fact that our team has line of sight to what is most important and most critical, and we also validate technology. So that way we can turn it over to a HABCO or a NEEP and to say, okay, this is a right fit solution for you. We're not there. So again, as an applied R&D center, what our team does is to, you know, develop and validate so that way we can have that, you know, partnership with other companies in the ecosystem.
So you can work with CCAT to help develop your technology roadmap, then leverage their thing to test it out, and then you can put it to work in your facility. Sounds like a full closed loop circle. Listen, guys, I really appreciate it. Brian, Jackie, Nick, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your experiences.
You bet. You bet. Thanks, Ari.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.